The Masterclass on Design and Systems Thinking for Digital Transformation by Dr. Sumit D. Chaudhary has been interesting and informative. Now we have a question and answer round. Our first question is your experiential views on why there is a process and method to do design thinking and there are a bunch of talented people who come together to do it. From a decision maker or leadership perspective, how do you see the role that they need to play or they are playing? How do they engage with various design projects and what kind of engagement do we need and what do we experience at different stages of the design project?
Where does leadership sponsorship come in a design thinking project? So essentially, if you take a look at, first is they need to be able to the fact that I am no longer thinking that my universe, my company is in the center of the universe. In the prior thinking approach, every leader thought that I am the center of the universe, everybody interacts with me. First is, if you flip this thing, is that I have a customer and I need to solve the customer's problem and I am fitting in somewhere in the ecosystem of needs of my customer. So the leadership's first mindset change is to understand that they are part of an ecosystem, which is a major ego scale down over there. Once that has happened, they need to sponsor projects and involve themselves as one of the stakeholders, not the decision-making stakeholder. They are one of the stakeholders of the larger process. So they need to give their inputs. Absolutely, what a leader needs to see, what the investor needs to see, what the ecosystem of leaders that report to the top line needs to see are all requirements. They are dashboards. They are decision-making pieces of data. Can we take them as one user group and see if the project delivers to that user group? They are also a user group in the system. So as long as, if they come down from that hobby horse of saying that I am the leader and my decisions are the final, to say that there is an ecosystem of needs in my company. If the needs of the ecosystems are met, then the company as such will benefit more. A lot of times it is flipped, unfortunately. The leader is driving it, their requirements are a higher priority than the people who are actually using the system day in and day out. The majority users we are looking at these niche, extreme user requirements, and we build for extreme user requirements. Again, we talked about extreme users and mainstream users. We need to change their mindset to look at they are an extreme user, the leadership. We need to treat them as such. Keep them outside the bucket of the mainstream users whose processes you need to think. And the leader should be amicable to this concept that they are also a user and they are an extreme user. We will consider them, but there is a set of 90% of others who are also contributing.
In an existing system or when the car is running, where do you start for transformation? Or what is probably the best place to start for a transformation in an existing system?
Measurement and dashboards. Measurement. I would start, this is my personal opinion, I would start by saying, car is already running. Let's start measuring as many things as we can. I mean, in the dashboard of a car, I don't know whether you know, is only showing about 5% of the data that is available in the car today. Are we watching the right 5%? What are the other things that are hidden that we are collecting data? Let's bring those out. Let us look at where the problems are. Let us look at trends of data. So if there is a running car, I would start looking at data analysis of what my car is doing. If I know a problem, then I'll start by asking questions about a problem. If you don't know where we are, the car is going and somebody said, please do a transformation project. That means you don't know what you're doing. Right? So first you need to identify what problem am I solving? My car is not going fast enough. Problem. Where do we need to start by, somebody says fast enough. What is enough? First, let's define what is enough. And then we say, let's measure the speed over different periods of time. Is it fast enough in this category? Is it not? So you start doing a lot of analysis of the data to say, I now know that what are the global benchmarks of fast in this road? Is it 20 kilometers per hour? Is it 100 kilometers per hour? F1 car is going very slow at 100 kilometers per hour, but a two-wheeler is going very fast at 100 kilometers per hour. Who are you? Are you the two-wheeler? Are you F1? So you need to know who you are, what problems you are going to solve, look at the data analysis, and then you say, okay, now I know that I need to stop the car to do it, or I'll be able to solve the speed problem while the car is running. Two problems. Do I have the option to stop the car, or I don't have the option to start the car? I'll give you an example of a problem that we faced in one of the companies that I was the CIO for. We had a CRM system. We used to get about 500,000 calls a day. We had to upgrade this CRM system. The upgrade the software vendor came and said that they would require a 3-day downtime of the CRM system to upgrade. A 3-day downtime for us would mean that we would have missed about 2 million calls. We would have not been able to answer 2 million calls. We would not have been able to take new orders. Everything would have come to a grinding halt in a company which takes 500,000 to 1 million calls a day. So essentially that was not an option. So you've got a running company, you need to upgrade. The upgrade might take 3 days. So how do you do it? You need to do the parallel bus in speed. You need to bring another vehicle next to it, make sure that your consumers are being addressed by some other thing which is good enough to run at that velocity but may not have all the feature functionality. Then you move them over. So there's a lot of thinking that went in, and the vendor had said that I can reduce the 3-day downtime to a 2-day downtime, but you have to give me $10 million. That also was not an acceptable answer, right? You cannot take a 2-day downtime. We had to do it at 0 downtime. So how do you take a digital transformation is about this thinking of saying that somebody who's telling me it is going to take 3-day downtime to do it in 0 downtime. That is digital transformation. That I have thought through everything that needs to be done to completely change the question only. That we were asking this vendor questions about how to decrease the downtime. Database upgrade is that, so software, whatever it was. But it was not about that. Question was wrong. Trying to optimize that process was not the right way to address the problem. But anyway, that's just giving you an example of how to do it while the bus is running.
By the time we are able to collect the data and analyze it and see what's wrong, the bus has moved, which means that there is something new happening.
I'll give you an answer which comes from a Nobel laureate called Herb Simon. He got his PhD at Carnegie Mellon. He was a professor there. I happened to have interacted with him in my days there. He got his PhD in a concept called satisficing, which says that do you have just about enough to get the answer that you require versus going that human beings satisfies. It's a natural human behavior not to get we can take decisions with partial information. We can take decisions with imperfect inputs because we are able to draw these larger pictures with that sense. So good leaders are leaders who are able to see a pattern emerging from sparse information. When you have leaders who will insist on 100% data collection and doing it, you can be sure that they don't know what they are doing. Sorry about this analogy, but somebody is asking for. I mean, I'm doing a project here in which we are collecting data on traffic in Delhi. We are being asked questions which are absolutely ridiculous in terms of accuracy, which will never be used for anything. If people don't know what they are doing, you will have people asking questions which are of absolutely no relevance. So as business leaders, as transformation leaders, as systems thinkers, we need to point out what is satisfying, what is good enough for us to take decisions to move ahead. Because yes, you're right that if you collect too much information, you are collecting information. It is not going to add to any more knowledge that you have got, or it doesn't make you any wiser. And you should allow some decisions to fail, as I was talking about. You have to say that, look, I have got a good enough picture for me to take 3 steps now. I will figure out which of 3 steps are the right 3 steps, because I will then only collect information about these 3 steps, and I will narrow down my decision making, data collection, my focus to a point where now I have a decisive decision to make, which will have millions of dollars of impact, cost-wise or revenue-wise, right? So this thinking, constantly thinking, being sharp about this idea is what makes a good leader versus not so good leader, or yet to become a good leader.
What is the timeline to hypothesis design thinking, prototype and test?
I'll tell you, if you're looking at oil and gas as you are in Shell, where investment themselves in is taking many years to invest, and your business cycle in tens of years, in decades, versus an e-commerce company, their business cycle is in hours. If they don't sell today, then they are gone. Tomorrow is a different day, right? So my answer would be tailored to the business cycle that you are in. Understanding business cycles are very important, because if you change something in a semiconductor plant, in a refinery. I mean, I was deeply involved in Reliance and worked with their refinery over there as well for some time. You can't just change something. Like it is a product. What you define as a product, what is the design? You need to break the problem down to things that can be solved in shorter periods of time, things that can be demonstrated in shorter periods of time. And given where the industry is going today, decentralized, decoupled applications, lots of other people who are specializing in niche, don't try to do everything in-house. Bring in a set of people who are going to bring in very different perspectives to you, and find you 3 other alternatives that are already there in the industry, which will fast track your MVP process. Problem that I see in large organizations which are multinational, where people are spread all over the thing, is trying to build consensus within everybody inside. You forget that there is an outside. You forget about how the universe is moving faster than what you can do inside. And that could be an answer to your specific problem in the company, where your cycles are longer, but you have people who are specialists. Bring them in on board. Give them 3-month timelines. People lose interest in 3-month timelines. Yeah. So but there is a T20 and then there is a test cricket. You decide the match. Not all matches are same. People play every match correctly. There are people who do long-term thinking, who are good strategists over a long period of time, and there are people who can very quickly crystallize an idea down to, these are the 3 things. If you tell me, then I will tell you these 2 things. Within those 2 things, here are the 5 things you can measure. Based on what you get, we can take an answer. Very quick. If you have done it before, it's very quick. If you haven't, you are learning everything from scratch. Those days are gone where we learn everything from scratch.
Can you please share any assessments for digital transformation maturity?
Again, thanks to work done in the CMMI, again coming out of the same CMU, KITI is the maturity model, the capability maturity model. Now, digital transformation maturity models also follow the same thing, in terms of saying that are you just starting off your digital journey? Are you measuring everything in your digital journey? Are you transforming again from 1 to 5? A whole lot of maturity models have there is a curve that you will go through, and not, as I said, a project could be spread across your organization, and some of them are in one stage of maturity and others are not, and it is okay. It is okay for not all of them to move at the same pace, and allowing things that need to happen faster, move faster. Now, a good leader would constantly prioritize his or her time onto these projects. Now, if I take a look at how I have seen leaders work, they measure the amount of time they are spending in meetings with various initiatives. If they measure their time, you know that their focus is on a particular area, not on a particular area, and you basically allow different projects and different transformation projects with different maturity curves to progress. A good leader also knows where to pull in resources from the rest of the organization, understands the capability of the teams that are working in the organization to pull them through this maturity model that is there. And you will spend a lot of time trying to define this maturity model and trying to pin your projects down to these. I would actually spend less time on that versus saying, am I doing the project? Am I pushing the project along? Are deliverables happening? Are we seeing change? When will we see change? Keep everybody in that innovation mindset, keep everybody, bring all your stakeholders together constantly, better communication. There's a set of parameters that you can put together to constantly measure this transformation maturity.
If I take car as a service, in the example that was given, I have to look at transformation from the usage of the car, the infrastructure, the capabilities, not just car as a vehicle. How can one change the experience using digital transformation?
Broad enough to look at mobility as a service, not just car. And the subset of people in this whole universe that have a car or will ever need a car is a very small subset of the total universe of people in this planet. Because one, as you said, affordability, there's a lot of people who don't need to go from too far to too far, and there is public transport available. So when you bring it down to the people who are definitely going to need a car, then you go into the deeper analysis of what the car should be, what the service should be. Before that, you start with the mobility requirements. You ask the question of what kind of public transport should be there, what could be last mile connectivity using autos, using two-wheelers, using electric two-wheelers, using small cycles, electric cycles. All kinds of options are there today to solve a person's need. And 70%, as again said, 70% of the person's requirement today in big cities, at least in India, is small, short distances. They are not long distances that are required from a car. And many companies came in and said, I'll solve the really long distance car problem that actually is not being solved by the car at all today in India. There are different requirements. In the US, problem is different. The whole way in which suburbs of cities got built, car became mandatory. So a lot more people, the per capita car consumption is very high because suburbs have been built that way, that you have to have a car to go from place A to place B. Public transport is not that frequent and is not that safe in many cases. So essentially people say, you know what, I'm based on my other needs, related needs of safety, speed at which I need to go from place A to place B, car is the best option. So again, I'll not go into too much detail. At the point that you need to identify whose problem are you going to start to analyze, and you cannot boil the ocean. If you're trying to solve the problem for the car owners, then you'll focus on that as the root cause and draw the systems diagram around the car ownership. Don't look at the mobility problem. Mobility problem has a totally different set of stakeholders.
Where does nudge economics stand and fit into digital transformation?
And I wanted to take this opportunity. Those little triangles that I had drawn in the systems diagramming, those are called leverage points. And leverage points are little nudges that you give to the system to flip them to move in one direction. I don't know whether this pollution problem pushed a lot of companies, including those in Delhi and others, to move to an electric buses. And one of the big things that has happened across is government procurement of electric buses across the country, and the entire public mobility moving to the electric industry much faster than the private vehicles moving in the electric. It was a small nudge that was given. I mean, the total cost of vehicles, and the government was no poorer because they were actually lending the money and getting the money back from the operators of these buses. So it's not that they are investing to get something back in return, but that little nudge actually had a huge impact as to how the whole electric industry has shaped up here in India in the public transport space. We are going to see some translation of that into the private transport, but nudge economics and nudge behavior change comes in there. When you do a digital transformation and you tell your users, measure them. I have done a project for Indian Railways where if you penalize somebody at the end of the month on all the work that he has done in the month, that's one way of looking at life. The other one is to tell them every day, nudge them that they are about to miss something, they are about to do something, encourage them to meet the expectations that are there for their work, and you will start seeing this little nudge along the way going to completely transform something versus major hammers coming to change the process. So nudge plays a huge role in digital transformation. Nudge plays a huge role in systems thinking as leverage points which people use to change, small change creating large impacts.
Can you please suggest a right framework for doing research in management between systems dynamics and complexity science, which will be a better fit?
I don't know what when you do research, it needs to come from within. If you have read enough about both of these things, they are highly correlated. They are related things. And if you are a mathematician and looking at complex mathematics versus looking at a large scale thinking, what is the problem that you're trying to solve between these three? Is it going to be an academic project on mathematics of complex systems, or you're going to look at it from a application standpoint in a particular industry or in a particular ecosystem? Complex systems are generally modeled. I mean, if you look at stock markets, if you look at any neural networks, if you look at any network theory, one of the big things that we do at Gaia is to look at fractals and fractal theories that go along with it. Is all part of the larger concept of data collection, going deep down. New patterns will emerge as you go down and understand things. So it's a mindset in which you can apply. So it is an individual. You have to decide whether you want to be on the mathematics side of it or the practical implementation side of this. The diagramming is more important. What are the hypotheses that you're trying to put forward in terms of research? One of them would be mathematics hypothesis. The other one would be use case hypothesis. Those are slightly different in management thinking. And different schools and different professors will advise you one way or the other. I may not be the right one to answer in this use case, but if we can take this offline, we can have a more intellectual conversation about this.
We are a clothing store seeking to go online and digital. What should be our first step towards digital transformation?
Yeah, this is a good question. In a specific industry, in a very specific area. I mean, right now there's a lot of people who have gone online with niche platforms which allow for retail clothing stores to do mass customization of their products for specific users. I have, in fact, the shirt that I'm wearing came from one such online store, which asked me for all kinds of measurements for me, and then I placed an order. In 2 days' time, I had a custom-made shirt delivered to my place. It was an online placement. I'm sure that behind it was a shop or a home-based designer who was doing all of this. So essentially, in your specific case, it will be designing the website in a way that you are able to have an interaction with your customer to get specific measurements. If you look at real digital transformation, there are people who are getting into AR, VR, virtual reality, augmented reality to take images of their customers and then draping them with different clothing material, different textures, shaping them, and then let the customers interact with their designs and then choosing what they would like, and then you taking that design, and if you want to go completely digital, it gets transformed into a cutting design, and then it gets cut and gets produced. Depending on the volume that you're trying to achieve, you will go to different levels of automation. First one would be just to take static measurements from people and then start doing the work behind, and if you want to go deeper, as I said, you can go into a way in which you create an avatar, allow that to be draped by different cloths, interact with your customers. Then you further go into the automation of production. I don't know whether I've answered your question or not, but there are so many different ways in which digital tailoring services have gone online today.
Hope you enjoyed this masterclass and thank you for watching. Don't forget to tune into our next one.